Five Ring Circus project came about talking to Conrad Schmidt back in, I guess it would have been about 2003, 2004. We first started talking about doing something to document what was happening in Vancouver, and we first talked about making a movie. Let's do a documentary. Let's create some information out that could go out there so people can know what's going on. And Conrad decided to start the movie. He was getting interested in film, decided to launch a movie.
That's a nice thing about film, is that it's a bit of an adventure. And if you start filming something and you have these questions, will this happen or won't this happen? And you don't. Well, I didn't think it would be anything near as bad as what it turned out to be, but it was interesting having that learning experience of following those promises. And I think part of the inspiration was just a gut feeling that Chris Shaw, even though he was saying lots of crazy things, might be right.
Conrad went out to do a movie about whatever there was to find about the Olympics, and if he'd found a happy story, and if he'd found that they were the greenest games ever, and he found that the financial aspects worked. I mean, Conrad was skeptical. He went out there with a skeptical eye, but if he'd found a good news story, he would have reported that, and he couldn't find it.
So basically what we did is about 4 years before the games arrived, we took the bid book and some of the other promises that the IOC and the City of Vancouver made, and we just started following the promises to see how well they were kept. We didn't know at the time of making the film which ones would be kept and which ones wouldn't be kept. The objective was follow the promises in the bid book. It was, they didn't keep any of the promises. It was all lies, and we can prove it. And if I'm wrong, let them sue me.
So started the book project and the movie project in parallel, and we finally ended up giving it the same name because we decided they were basically talking about the same subjects. It was the same sort of issues that we wanted to raise: environmental, civil liberties, poverty, etc. And we ended up giving it the same name. So they're both called both the book and the movie are called Five Ring Circus.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting because back then the anti-Olympic movement was in its infancy. Prior to them shooting the film, the last thing that I had heard of being anything looking like an anti-Olympic movement was the campaign against the bid for the Olympics. I remember being around the corner here 3 years prior to the Olympics with Chris Shaw. And him basically making the prophecy that this neighborhood was going to be completely different by the time the Olympics came here, and he's right.
There wasn't anything that was particularly happy in the film. It's a sad film. It would have been nice if there was a few more happy moments in it, but overall it's extremely depressing piece of work. That's my feeling on it. It's nice that we made it and it shows what happened, but it's every time we watch it, it's just really depressing seeing what happened.
There is no good news to report in the Olympic Games. Yeah, there's some things for the athletes that are good for them, and certainly there are some businesses that do very well. But there weren't a lot of happy news stories coming out of that, and at the time we were filming, Eagle Ridge was being destroyed.
Well, Eagle Ridge Bluffs is, it was also, again, very interesting. Because the two characters were Betty Croswick and Harriet Nahaney, and these two little old ladies who they were just angels. They would sit there, they wouldn't swear at anybody, they wouldn't yell at anybody, and you had the rest of the protesters all running around. And whenever I interviewed Harriet, she'd always say, "I'm here because I'm protecting this land for future generations," and they were both great. And when eventually they were arrested, the judge got all the people that were protesting and were arrested and said, "Which of you are going to apologize to Kiewit and Sons," which was the construction company? And all the protesters, except for two, apologized. And they were given fines. And the two little old ladies who refused to apologize were sentenced to jail. Yeah, I interviewed Harriet right outside the courtroom just before they sentenced her. And from the footage, you can see she was really, really sick. She was coughing, she was sneezing. She shouldn't have even been there that day. And the judge still sentenced Harriet to jail term where she contracted pneumonia complicated by undiagnosed lung cancer, and she died. But everybody there knew she was too sick to go to jail. You can look at the footage. She's a little old lady, she's 72, can't breathe, and you sentence her to jail?
Well, there's something wrong with the legal system, and it's this. You see, the Royal Proclamation says no treaty, no jurisdiction. That's what it means. And it still stands today.
The greatest myth of all is that these make money for community and society at large, and it's simply not true. That they're green is not true, that they respect civil liberties is not true, that they're inclusive is not true. And as you go through that list of things and you break through the media barrier and realize that you're being sold a bunch of media spin, then you realize the reality is very different.
I think the thing that was the most surprising was the disillusionment with the mainstream media. There was a big eureka moment for me when what we did was, in the bid book it says that the security costs are 175 million. I mean, obviously it wasn't, because all the games were like $1 billion before then. So, well, the first question is, why did the media let them get away with it? So we just thought the media was stupid. And we then did a Freedom of Information request on the army and the police, and we got back documents saying that the cost was $497 million just for the RCMP. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. We got documents that prove that the government was lying about the security costs. The police told them it was going to be almost $500 million. The rest of the media did nothing for 2 years until the government told them that the costs were closer to $1 billion. Then only did they report the story. Well, the most important thing for the film is to be seen outside Vancouver for cities that that are considering having the Olympics. And I think the most significant thing the film did was it had a lot of screenings in Chicago. I honestly could tell that there was an anti-Olympics movement that was growing. And I think a lot of the credit goes to the Five Ring Circus, the film, as well as Five Ring Circus, the book that Chris Shaw made.
The book has raised attention to the issues. The movie has done a lot to raise attention to the issues. And the emergence of the Olympic Resistance Network is really a remarkable phenomenon. That hasn't happened before in Olympic cities. This is a first. Vancouver is going to be known for many things, but one of them is going to be that the Olympic resistance globally has really started here. And I think we've started something that's going to have wide-reaching ramifications.
But also to see how this movement has grown from almost nothing to like an international thing, like something that actually has international implications. Like I think that a lot of the folks in Chicago are really grateful that they were able to get a lot of information from us, and they were able to like scare the IOC from actually choosing Chicago as the Olympic city. So in that sense, I'm glad that Conrad and yourself and Chris invited me to work on that project, because it's certainly given me perspective, and it's really giving me a different view on this movement that other people might not have.
Amazing. I've had people who have rented the film or borrowed the film and watched it, and have immediately passed it on to friends or neighbors. And in fact, I just had a neighbor of mine last night show up at my doorstep asking if they could borrow a copy, because they'd seen it and wanted to show it to some friends that were in town and couldn't believe that this was going on in Vancouver.
It doesn't look very good. It's not looking good at the moment when you have to lay off teachers to fund ice sculptures and things. There's something really wrong with that. I think the city has also become so expansive that a lot of people are leaving. A lot of really good people that have made Vancouver a nice place are leaving. Lots of my friends have already left. This city is too expensive. The only people that seem to be able to afford to live here are millionaires and drug dealers.
I think it really has militarized our society in extremely negative ways. The fact that you have 15,000 police and soldiers descend on your city and take it over for 3 to 6 weeks has a very, very negative impact on the culture of a city. And I think people are going to regret these games. They're going to come to think it's probably the stupidest thing British Columbia ever did.
I really hope people see this and are able to take it to any region or place that is thinking of hosting an Olympic Games and show it and say, these are the promises that were made in order to acquire the Games, and this is the legacy of the Games.
Lasting legacies to service communities, young and old, for generations to come. Deadlines to complete athletes' villages, which become much needed long-term permanent housing in Vancouver and Whistler.
We will deliver lasting social, cultural, and athletic legacies.
Don't believe what the politicians tell you. This is bad for your region. It will cost you for generations and generations. This will make Montreal look like a joke. The long term for this film is, please do not vote for the Olympics coming to your region. You must stop the IOC.